Welcome to Friendly Math 101. Today's lesson is over linear parameter changes. Part 1. We're going to be looking at today how changing the m, the slope, and the b, the y-intercept, will affect our lines. Now, when we're looking at the slope will tell us two things: whether we're getting more or less steep, and whether or not we have a reflection. So the first thing let's talk about is the reflection. If our slope is negative, so if we have a negative m, we're going to have a reflection. So if our slope's negative, our line is going to reflect, or sometimes we might say change direction. That's if it's negative. Slope also tells us whether or not we're getting more or less steep. So if we have a slope that is greater than 1, we are going to be more steep. If we have a slope that's less than 1, we are going to get less steep. So further away from 0 is more steep. As we get closer to 0, we get less and less steep. For our y-intercept, this affects our shift up or down. If we have a positive b value, that's going to shift our line up. If we have a negative b value, that's going to shift our line down. So let's look at an example. Our first example here wants us to list the changes from the linear parent function. Remember, that function is y equals x. That's something that you need to memorize. Okay, so the first thing we should look at is the slope. The slope is the number in front of the x. So as we're looking at the slope here, I see first of all it's a negative. I have a negative slope. That means it's going to be a change in direction. So that's the first thing. Changes direction. That's the first transformation that we see. Next, we actually want to look at the number of the slope. Here in our parent function, the slope is 1. Here, the number there, the slope is 1/3. So our slope is getting closer to 0 because 1/3 is closer than 1. When we're getting closer to 0, we're getting less steep. And the last thing we want to look at is the b value, the y-intercept. This is a -4. Remember, we just talked about when we have a negative b value, that's going to be a shift down. Over here on our parent function, there is a 0 y-intercept. So -4 obviously is going to be a shift down from 0. So we're going to shift down, and I'll put the units here, 4. Shift down of 4. Those are all three changes that happen from the linear parent function. Another way you can see a question asked is to list the changes from one equation to another without using the parent function. So here we have our original 1/2 x plus 2. We want to list the changes to our new equation, 3x minus 1. So again, we're going to go in the same order looking at the slope. Both of these slopes are positive, so that it does not change direction. Our slope goes from 1/2 to 3. So here 1/2 to 3 is getting bigger. That means we're going to be more steep. Our number is getting further away from 0, so it's more steep. After the slope, we look at the y-intercept. On our first equation, our original, it's at +2, and then we go to a -1. So to go from +2 to -1, we have to shift down. So since our number is going down, we're going to shift down, And we can count the units. If we're up at positive 2, we need to go down to negative 1. That's a shift down of 3 units. Make sure you're paying attention to the signs. Positive 2, negative 1. So that's a shift down of 3. Thank you for watching, and for more math tutorials, please subscribe to our channel, Friendly Math 101.